it's almost been a week since we got these trusses set, and I haven't got anything done here. Well, that's not exactly true. I did get a little done. I built this one wall one afternoon when the rain quit for about an hour. I needed this wall here in order to hold up a little beam that's going to go across here to hold a roof that slopes toward the front of the street, and also needed it to hold up the gable over the that part of the house there. So now that we've got that wall and the top plates put on the front wall, I can get started on building the rafters for this front part. We have to put it there first, and then we can work on the little hip roof over here in this corner. Just felt a raindrop, I swear. You can't get anything done for rain around here. It's supposed to be pretty tomorrow. Cool at night. It's record lows here, but hopefully by tomorrow I can get really started on this roof, because I bet I'm going to have to pick up tools here in just a few minutes. This is how I'm going to start my common rafter that goes over here. I just started at the top, and that gives you something to hook your tape measure on. These little speed squares are nice. They got the common rafter pitches down here, and of course hip and valley's the next level up. But we are a 5/12 pitch, so if I just take this square and pop it up against the top of the board and rotate it until that 5 mark lines up right down the side, that's the actual angle I'll need to cut at the top of the rafter. It would also be the angle at the bottom of the rafter. So I'll get this cut, and then we'll start measuring off to try to get the location of the wall down below. Okay, I'm gonna try to get one cut out before the rain really sets in. Got this end angle cut, and then there's ways you can calculate the run depending on the rise of the roof, especially using numbers off of a conventional square. For instance, if you looked at a 5/12 pitch, it would probably tell you needed about 13 inches along the angle for every 12 inches of actual width of the roof. But what I do, I just draw it in AutoCAD and then write my measurements down and bring them with me. So I knew I needed to be 92 inches down to the outside of the wall along the top slope, and then I needed to be down about 103 1/4 to the tail where the overhang, just like on the trusses, it hangs out. I'm trying to make this match the trusses, so I'm actually going to lop this off here so that the fascia board will be nailed the same on this as it is on the trusses as well. And then this will be my little bird's mouth that sits over the wall. By measuring the existing trusses setting up on the top of the wall there, I know that the height above plate from the outside edge of the plate to the actual line of the roof is 4 inches. So that's what I've got drawn there. So I'll cut this off, square the rafter off, cut out the bird's mouth, and that will be my first rafter, which I'll be able to take it over here. It'll be a little funky on this side because of that hurricane clip, but I can probably set it on the wall right there, lay it up this cord to get me a mark, and then I can flip it over and set it on this wall and run it up. And I should have 1.5 inches between the ends of 2 of these rafters, and that will be for the ridge board to go in between them. So I'm gonna get this cut out. Like I say, it keeps a sprinkling on me. Radar's not looking good though. It's a coming. Looks like it's gonna set in for the day. So fortunately, I didn't pull out any tools this morning. I can't get far enough away from it, but I set it over there. Of course, it's going to be off a little bit because the length will actually be shorter because it was away from the truss at the bottom. But it's close enough that I can build this thing and set it up here. This is this rafter going down to that wall. So I can cut all these rafters. I can mark this in this pattern. I can just use it to draw out the other rafters and get all these cut and put together. Okay, went ahead. I'm gonna see if I can pick this thing up there like that. That's your ridge board. This will butt right up against the last truss. This will be our 24-inch on center rafter. This next rafter will be a little tighter than 24 inches because what I did, it's 48 1/4 inches out to the face of the front wall of the house. So I measured there and then dropped back in 1.5 inches. What I'll do, I'll put this thing up, and then I will probably sister a 2x4 up next to it, running the same angle. And then I can cut some flat 2x4s like a gable end truss, and run up and down on top of that little wall over there in order to have something to nail my sheeting to. And that'll give me a good nailing surface here to hold the top of that gable end wall. And then on the very end out here, I'm gonna have a 12-inch overhang. So I've made it I made this 10.5 like the rest of the tails on the trusses. And I'll put 1.5 inches, 2 barge rafters on the outside of this. I went ahead and cut them using the same pattern. They're laying over here in the floor. I probably won't get them on today, but basically I made them 3/4 of an inch longer here so they'll actually meet on the end of the ridge board instead of touching to it. And then on this end, there's no bird's mouth because there's no wall to set on. And what I've done here, this was the existing rafter tails. I'm going to put a 2x6 fascia board on the outside of our rafter tails, your gutter board, if you will. So I went ahead and made this 1.5 inches longer this way. And then I made it the same height, 5.5 inches as a 2x6, because that's what my fascia board is going to be. It's going to be a 2x6 with the top mitered off of it, or sloped off of it here to nail the sheeting to. So this will hopefully work out good, and that'll be the front barge rafter on the house. Usually you build a little something here, some people call it a bird box or something, back to the line of the wall of the house. Have to put aluminum over it before you run your corner board up to it. But these will be the actual barge rafters, the last 2 rafters. But what I'm gonna try to do is set this piece up on the wall as is, and if I can get it up there and propped up some way, I can put the rafters on the opposite side and it'll hold itself up. Okay, there is the first piece just setting up there, and got a leg clamped to it to hold it up. So we'll take one of those other side rafters that don't have the tail on them and screw it to the other side of the ridge board, and it'll set over on top of this little wall. Okay, got those 4 rafters and 1 ridge board put up. Rain's getting more and more steady. Radar looks like it's here, so just picked up the tools and I'm gonna go pick up some HVAC parts for tomorrow. Well, the bad news is the rain stayed around a while and we got a lot of it. The good news is it's beautiful now. It's supposed to be this way for several days. It's cool. We got down to freezing last night. The forecast tonight's for 31 degrees, is probably a record low, but if the sun will shine, I don't care. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna try to do is make the hip rafter to go over there on the corner of the porch. And this little speed square, like we talked about yesterday, if we put the hip side on 5, a hip rafter is actually a lower slope because it's got to run a longer distance in the same amount of a roof. That's why it's always easy to walk up valleys or hips if you're on a steep roof. But if I set that on my 5/12 hip, I get it cut this way. I'm going to put this on the end of a ridge board that I'll run across the face of that truss. It won't be held up by the truss, it'll be held up by a little beam underneath it. But basically, if you square it off of this, that's how much of a bevel I need to put on the hip rafter. I think it calculates out to about 7/16 overall from one side to the other. The other option is you can drop the hip rafter down, but you don't get as nice of a bearing surface for your sheeting when you put it on there. So on these little short rafters, it's not going to take long to bevel it off there. And then because it's going into the end of a 1.5 inch thick board, I'll actually have to make a square cut here, actually square this direction with my little saw in order to allow this to be back flush to the back of the ridge board or to the truss. That'll be one side of my hip rafter. Again, I'll bevel the top of it. Then I'll make a sister to it that I always start my measurements from the center. And so I'll have to flip the other board over. That'll probably get me confused, but at any rate, I'll make a sister to it that'll have the bevel going the other way. And it'll make a good solid place, a corner there to nail your sheeting down. I'll show you what it looks like when I get it cut out here. Alrighty, well there's that end cut out we were looking at. And down here you have a bird's mouth that's actually beveled to go with the wall. And then on the very end here where you have your rafter tail, it also has a bevel. And then the last bevel is on top, because the plane of the roof will be coming in here, so you got to either have it beveled or you got to drop it down. And I just really like the bevel, especially if you don't have many of them to do. So that's one half. I got to make a half that will sister. It'll actually come this direction because there'll be a common rafter sitting right here at the end of the ridge board. So to get those two cut, it's home free. Okay, things have been going good. There's that hip rafter that we saw earlier. You can see it comes on out here, makes the overhang. We've got our two little creepers in there, and then everything else was a common rafter down through there. What we're doing right now, cutting the first fascia board. What I'm wanting to do is nail it across the end of these tails and run over there and meet those two barge rafters that we've stuck on the front of that gable, and see if we can get all that tied together right. So, got my cousin Brandon here helping us. It's good to have family that like to help out. Here's the layout on this fascia board, and that'll actually go all the way from that corner and go over and touch that barge rafter, but we got our 2 foot on center layouts. But what's important about this, and what takes so long to make them, is you got to cut this top off at the 22.5 roughly degree angle that the roof is running, and this will nail up flush to the tops of the rafters and give you something good to nail your sheeting to. Well, it's getting late in the day. Didn't get to do as much as I wanted. We stopped midday and had to do something else, but got back out there this evening and pretty much got all this framing wrapped up. There's your common rafters all the way down to your hip rafter. Got your fascia board on. Got a place to run our valley down through here. So I think rather than start trying to cut that stuff up tonight, we're gonna go ahead and call it quits. Like I say, we don't have much sun left. It's kind of chilly out here, but I'll be back in the morning. We'll hit it again and see if we can't get some sheeting on. It's a beautiful Sunday. Happy Mother's Day. I thought I'd get all these fascia boards ready. Got to rip them every one. So I went ahead and stuck a string on here just to see how we were looking. Connected it from the last rafter that's short on this end all the way down to the other truss on the very end, and it looks really good. Somebody did a real good job lining these things up. This side is good too. So what I'm doing over here is I went by the shop and got my old Porter Cable magnesium base saw, because I got to make so many of these. I've got to rip about 100 lineal feet of this stuff. And I don't know what I cut for that blade last time, but I can only guess that it involved concrete and steel, because it was smoking me out. Fortunately, I picked up my old Black & Decker saw at the same time, and it had a blade on it it's not good, but it's better than that thing, so it's going to make the cut all right. It don't seem to be a burn in it much. Yeah, that's where I tried to see if I can get that in the light. That's where I was trying to cut with that first blade. But at any rate, all you're doing is starting right here on the edge of the board and taking off 22.5 degrees off of the top of this fascia board. The best way I found to do that when I was building my house is go ahead and start it in up here just with your eyeball, and once you get the blade seated in there where the saw will set, take your pair of vice grips and clip on the fence right here, and then all you got to do is push it through almost like a table saw. You just keep that vice grip over against the material, and even if the material's got a bow in it, the saw will follow it. So I've got to rip out I'll probably start with about 6 of these guys, 16 footers. And I'm doing the layouts as we go too. This one will start up here at this hip rafter. And then that's the actual ends of the rafters or trusses down through here. So it'll break, I'm gonna break it on a truss right here. So we got 3/4 inch. We'll start a new board here and take off again. Got a halfway decent day. It's a little cool, but it's not raining. Did an install yesterday, so it's already Tuesday. Just put this first piece down. My brother-in-law's here. He's getting a dimension over to the next piece. Missy went and picked up a radio, so now we can't do any videos because we'll break copyright laws. But we're gonna get some of this sheeting on today. We'll get you some video as we go. Well, it's a little after 5 and we were beat, so we quit. We got a lot of that side on. We still got to build a overhang on that upper part up there, so I was wanting to get all that sheeting put on and get those trusses straightened up so we'd have some kind of reference. So we got that side sheeted to the top, but not completely done. We got that little slope over the front porch and up the gable over there sheeted, and then it's hard to get around to this side. Let's see, we got a couple rows, part of a couple of rows on this side. So all in all, it's a pretty good day. The stack came down quite a bit over there, but it's supposed to rain again in the morning, but maybe it won't rain much, or maybe they'll miss it and we can get in here and get some more done tomorrow. So you can see what we've done. We run that first row all the way down to where we had a cut piece. And instead of stopping and cutting it, we just jumped back up and started the next row where you got to step in. So same thing we did over here. You can see the little stair steps. But what we wanted to do was just, again, get all these trusses kind of straightened out. You know, we had them braced, but the braces were just there to hold them until we had time to put the plywood on, or the OSB. So now we've got enough of these trusses straightened up that we can measure and get our little overhang built up there I was talking about out there at the street. And then go ahead and finish all that up. Probably do that in the morning if the rain will leave us alone. Well, the weatherman was right. We got rain. It's about lunchtime and it's starting to slack off. The sky's getting a little lighter, so I think we're going to jump up there and see if we can do anything with these front rafters. Something that doesn't take getting a lot of tools out, in case it does start back. Okay, the weather said rain at 4, so they about made it. Just a little after 4 and looks like it's going to start anytime. But we got this front done and finished it. And we went ahead and toothed in the back here. I've got to build that overhang, but I've also got to build that little hip roof down off of this corner. So we just ran this plywood what we could do here and held it out. It's going to be fine, I'm sure. We'll get it back on here pretty quick, but I've got to work on the foundation down there on that stairwell to build some walls to hold up the roof. So I may go ahead and actually put some felt on the rest of this, try to keep the house pretty dry. I'm going to put a ridge vent up here. That's just how the sheets broke. I think it's probably close enough. I will fill in the ends down here, put some blocking or something to fill those in, because you don't want to have that ridge vent right out over the edge. It could get some water in it when the wind blows a certain way. I typically run the ridge vent on out just to make the roof line stay the same, but you still put your felt and everything underneath there and your shingles so it don't actually leak if any water did get in. A lot of times your ridge vent stops short of the edge of the roof a foot or so. So anyway, glad that's on there. Got the little overhang built in there, so I have to sheet that wall. Or actually, all the gable walls still have to have sheeting put on them. I still got a pretty good stack down there. Hopefully I figured right and will have enough. Like that big green piece there that was on top. I guess they stack it up and paint all the edges at once. So I'm gonna call it a day. Pick up the rest of the tools before the rain gets here. And I guess the next thing I'll have to do is try to jump back there on that back, get that foundation ready and build the rest of the roof.